Hello, my friends, and welcome to the study. For tonight's relaxation, let's do some Latin grammar. We'll get very heavily into it, or heavily enough, so that you can occupy that part of your brain that needs something to do while the rest of your intellect and spirit can just float away into a deep, restful, long sleep. We'll start with our Rhodia notebook with the coated cover and very nice and smooth writing paper, and we'll use our Lamy pen. And I've got South Seas blue ink in it, in a Lamy cartridge. And outside you might be able to hear the birds as they move about the woods and the garden and the meadow beyond the study's windows. Nature doing its thing outside while we do ours inside. Let's start. Should also probably use a pencil or something maybe a little bit darker. I'll use a pen, a black ballpoint pen. This is a gel pen from Pentel. It's very pretty, it's sparkly. That way we'll have two colors. We'll start with comparing a translation of a conditional. If he promised to give me half the flowers, I should gladly work in his garden. There we are. And I have little anomalies here and there, so I hope that's part of the impromptu nature of this video in this study here. So we have a conditional here. What do we have? We have the if statement, which is called the protasis, and we have the result, apodosis. Yes? So what we have here in our English is a future less vivid, or this is a construction that can prove difficult for learners of English as well. It is a hypothetical. There's no actual time attached to this. It's a bit of a timeless condition. If something were to be the case, or were to come about, then this would happen. Under this condition, I would do this. So, if we had a present that was contrary to the fact, if he were to promise me half the flowers, or were to promise, means that he doesn't promise to give me half the flowers. So then it would be an action that's incomplete or unreal. In the past, didn't happen. Never going to happen. But here, this might happen. It's hypothetical. Nothing here is implying that the action is complete or unreal in the past. So it's a possibility. So our most natural Latin expression would be a subjunctive. And so we're going to use present subjunctive in the protasis and imperfect subjunctive in the apodosis. And there are our verbs. And here we can see in the English how our conditional works. Looks very similar to a past tense, which can be confusing. So in the conditional, when we're translating into Latin or from Latin, we must take into account the entire meaning. Let me see if I can show you some examples of our protasis and apodosis. Remember this? We've worked on this quite a lot. I've marked the conditionals here. There we have. There are present open unknown conditionals and closed remote. So a difference between a possibility and something that's impossible. It's never going to happen. Here we're using indicative, and here we're using subjunctive. But we have a bit of a future remote here. It might be a possibility. If you were to say this, you would make a mistake. Here we're using present subjunctive. Now these formulae, and also an indirect statement, as you see with our protasis and apodosis, can often be misleading when we're translating between English and Latin. Because sometimes we want to mix these tenses. So we really have to have an idea of what the entire meaning is. So here we have what we're calling a future less vivid. It's a hypothetical condition. So what we're going to do is here we're using polychaeatur. Si polychaeatur subjunctive. If he promised, if he will promise, in the subjunctive, say that he, that's our reflexive, mihi, our dative, to me, have partem, half the part of florum. And now promised to give me half of the flowers. Alright, and our apodosis, I should gladly work in his garden. English often uses should or would here for this. Yes, so we're going to put gladly, our adverb, liebenter. Let's see, in his garden, in horto eius. Okay, we've got our cases there. In horto eius laborarem. There's our mixing of tenses here with both subjunctive. So what we have here is our protasis, is our present subjunctive. And our apodosis, which is imperfect subjunctive. This is a natural occurrence in many Latin texts. You see this as a sort of idiomatic. What other options do we have? We could use promisiset. Promisiset. And that would be our pluperfect subjunctive. Why would we use a pluperfect subjunctive if he had promised? Let's put that in the black in our protasis. Again, this would be a closed one. It's no longer possible if he had promised, but he still might, so we want to stay with our present subjunctive. If he may promise, translated literally, and in English we use if he promised, which means it's still a possibility. He might do yet. If he may promise to give me half of his flowers, or half the flowers, daturum, in the future, libenter in horto eius laborum. I would gladly work in his garden. What else could we say about this? If we wanted to make it a closed impossibility, if he had promised to give me half of the flowers, I would have worked gladly in his garden, but he didn't, so I'm not working in his garden. And there we would probably use our pluperfect, again, the promisiset and laboravisem. But what we don't want with our pluperfect, we don't want to put something in our protasis firmly in the past. We want to keep it a future possibility. So we use the present subjunctive. A good way to express what something promises to do is polycatur, polycary, which is our deponent. And here we're using our It's a future active participle. Looking like a form of supine. Yes, plus esse. And we have our, and this future participle is used to show something that's promised in the future rather than use a present infinitive. So, for example, we want to keep that future in mind. We want to say, I promise that I will do this. So we could say, och mig. Facturum esse, that I will do this, or me facturum esse, it is to me to do this in future. And polykeo, I promise. So this one's in the present, our main verb, and this is a future condition or a future action. So this, to me, to be done in future, I promise. And this is very idiomatic, so that's the sort of thing we're going for. And with our Latin, we can even fiddle with the word order as well. And you can put the esse in different places sometimes. If you're reading Latin, you might see it left out. Let's put it in and fiddle with the word order a bit. Si, se mihi, he, to me. Dimidiam partem florum. Oh, we're getting a bit slippy sloppy with the writing. Okay, and our daturum esse polycerator. There's our potasis. Our potasis is our condition if. Okay. And there's our accusative subject, our reflexive se, he. To give to me. Dimidiam parte florum. There's our daturum esse polycerator, to me. That daturum esse is our future. It's a bit of noise in the skies today, so I keep having to pause a little bit just to keep it quiet for us. Let's do our potasis. This little phrase, libenter in horto eius. Laborarem is our subjunctive, our imperfect subjunctive, meaning I would work in this garden. Very nice. Okay. Let's Let's do another one. Here's a fun one. Again, our nice little use of should in English. Ooh, we should all be injured if this tree fell. So again, not to get bogged down in the grammar just yet when we're thinking of how we should express this. What is the meaning? Is it remote? Is it already happened? Is the possibility closed? Or is it still open? Our English blends registers a little. Should here is expressing potential. We should all be injured. We would be injured. We might be injured. So it's not obligatory. So with this sort of construction, we can see that this is a conditional. And there is our potasis there, if this tree fell. Right? In English, this might look like simple past, but we call it a conditional or moral preterite. It's a past form, but it's used to express a hypothetical future. If the tree fell in future, then we should all be injured as our potential. So what we want here is our Latin's future less vivid. So what we're going to do for future less vivid in our protasis, our C clause, we're going to use the, how am I going to mark this out? Okay. Protasis. We're going to use the present subjunctive as before. In our future less vivid, it's a possibility. And again in our apodosis, and that's there. I could be a lot more accurate, couldn't I? But then I'd be more awake, and we're trying to sleep. So our apodosis, we're going to use present subjunctive, which we see in our English, our should, which is very much a present subjunctive in English. Our subjunctives in English aren't always easily recognizable. And sometimes people are reluctant to use them because they can sound wrong. For example, long be it so is a subjunctive. It be. So they often look very awkward. They can look like odd tenses or infinitives or even conjugated wrong. And we most often use them in idiomatic phrases. Long live the Queen, for example. May she be well. And that's our subjunctive as well, may. And should functions like that as well. So what is our Latin going to be? Let's do the protasis first, our if clause. See, haec arbor, if this tree present subjunctive. Decidat, may fall, or were to fall. Or in English, as we said, our moral preterite fell. We should all, omnes, and here our complete verb is should be injured in English. It's a compound verb structure. And we all, the we, of course, is attached to the verb ending in Latin, so we don't need pronoun. And all, omnes. So this is an instance of the Latin being very succinct. Omnes laedamur. Yeah. That's from laedere, to injure or harm. We could also use something like vulnerare, okay? This is more like a physical wound, and often with blood, so it's seen in battle, vulnerare. Here we're just talking about trees falling on people and them being harmed in a certain way. So we use laedere. We hope there's no blood involved. We're not having a battle here. This is not Caesar. It's not Livy. We're just talking about this possibility of a tree falling in the future. This one might seem quite straightforward. So we have a future, less vivid. If this tree should fall, we would be injured. In that case, we would use present subjunctive in both apodosis and potasis. Siac arbor cadat or decidat, omnes laedamur. If this tree should fall, it might happen. Our present unreal, or open. If this tree were falling now, we would be injured, but it's not, so we're not injured. We would use imperfect subjunctive in both clauses. Siac arbor caderet omnes laederemur. And if we used pluperfect subjunctive in both, it would make a past unreal, or never going to happen. If this tree had fallen, we would have been injured, but it didn't, so we aren't. We would use pluperfect subjunctive. Ceci dicet, en laesi essemus. However, here we're going to mix tenses, because if this tree fell, okay, we have our present subjunctive. It's a possibility that this tree might fall. If it did, then we should all be injured. We may be injured, using our present subjunctive again. So that one, again, mixing a bit of tenses in the English this time, but also have a look at the overall meaning. Is this a closed, remote, or is it an open possibility? Let's see if we have room on this paper to do one more. We'll do a more involved one this time. Because now we're very good at it. If I did not think the journey safe, look at that potasis. Look how charged that is grammatically in the English alone. If I did not think the journey to be safe. Very interesting structure. See how our verbs, our infinitives have fallen away. We don't need them. We just use our adjectives there. And our apodosis. I should not. Read that. I should not be urging you to come here. There. Let's have a look at the conditional structure. We have a present contrary to fact conditional. If I did not think this fact, but I do. So, contrary to fact, we have it's a present situation, and it's contrary to fact. Meaning, if I did, but I don't. And our apodosis, I should not be urging. I should not, but I am. So again, contrary to fact. I do think it, and I am urging. So in both cases here, we're going to use our imperfect subjunctive in Latin. In both our protasis and our apodosis. So both here we have our unreal, present, in which case we use imperfect in Latin. How would we start this? Well, we have a negative with our if. So in Latin we use nisi, negative ni and si, if not or unless. And we don't use si non in Latin. And then we want our object and predicative adjective. Iter tutum. Iter, what's being thought about, and our tutum, describing it. And now we can have our verb. Putarem. Nisi iter tutum putarem. The placement of the tutum next to iter is probably the best word order here. Especially because we have our protasis. And here we have our imperfect subjunctive, making it contrary to fact. And our position of our apodosis. So we have suaderum, tibi, ut, huc, venires. Here we're looking at urge you. There's our ut. And there's our main verb. And I think we need another negative in there. Non. I would not. I should not be urging you. And there again is our imperfect subjunctive. Swaderem. I think we're going to put another macron there. Swaderem. I should not be urging. Imperfect subjunctive. So when we have our apodosis, this is taking place now. If this weren't the case, but it is, I wouldn't be doing this, but I am. So can you see why we're using imperfect rather than present that we used up here? So this is something that's contrary to fact, whereas up here, this is something that may happen as a possibility. There's no but, it's not up here. This is contrary. So the action that's being recommended or urged takes our ut clause plus subjunctive. Swaderem plus an ut clause to come hook here. And our clause structure, again, nisi putarem, unless I were thinking, but I'm not. If I did not think the journey's safe. Nisi, we want to come first, because that sets off our protasis, our condition. And our apodosis, our main clause, venires. Again, we have our ut clause there. A present contrary to fact situation. What can we say about the ut clause? Ut hoc venires. It's our purpose clause, which is dependent on suadere, to urge someone to do something. Right? I am urging, it is to you, our dative, suaderem, plus our ut clause. So in our subjunctive subordinate clause, sequence of tenses means an imperfect as our secondary historic tense. In our ut clause, suadere, ut hoc venires. Because the main verb, suaderem, is our imperfect subjunctive. Our subordinate clause, which is our ut clause, also uses this imperfect subjunctive. So not only do we have our protasis and apodosis clauses, we also have our ut clause, our subordinate clause that's connected to our suadere clause. This clause is not part of the conditional structure because it's just belonging to this suaderem. And as we did here, the non should come immediately before the suaderem. If I did not think the journey safe, I should not be urging you, TB, to come here. I should not be urging you. There's our conditional. Imperfect subjunctive because we have a contrary to fact. And what is it? I'm not urging you to come here. Veniris. So to review the grammar in this sentence, our nisi putarem is our unreal present protasis. Non suadarem apodosis, unreal present. Iter tutum goes together. The tutum, which is our object, plus our predicative adjective, right? And our putarum, which we've had, which is our unreal present. It's the unreal present in meaning and imperfect subjunctive, is how it's expressed. Apodosis, non suadarem. And then we have ut veneris, our indirect command governed by suaderem. Suaderem ut veneris. And huc, which is our adverbial of place. Imperfect subjunctive throughout by our rules of Latin sequence of tenses. And there we go. 3 conditional sentences to put your brain to sleep. Heavy grammar to wrap you in wonderful deep sleep. Now it's time in this study to thank our January study patrons. Firstly, thank everyone for watching. I'm so glad that you're here in the study with me tonight. Thank you for all of your support, your comments, your thumbs up, your likes and subscribes. And special thank you to those study patrons who give the study so much support on Patreon. And if you haven't already, you can see the link below to Patreon. You can see the studies Patreon page, where you can find some posts and videos and some exclusive content. And our sextant level Patreon supporters include Pirate Carrie, thank you. Romulus, thank you. Ben, thank you. Joshua, thank you. Theorem, thank you. Andreas, thank you. Elizabeth, thank you. And Carman 1000, thank you. Have a very restful night. Dream of wonderful adventures. Wake up refreshed. Be good to yourself. Be kind to others. See you in the study soon for our live session next week. And be extraordinary.